Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together, there's no stopping you. I'm Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcab.com. One of the things that I love about this podcast, Rounding the Bases, is the variety of guests that come on. And really, they come on from every walk of life, many in Kansas City, some out of Kansas City. And really, the general theme is culture and leadership, which can fall into any type of profession or endeavor. So whether I have the occasional sports guest on, or whether I have the nonprofit or the CEO of a company, whoever it is, I'm always interested in those stories and hoping that they will inspire others that are listening and watching. And by the way, if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your audio podcasts, you can also see the video version of this on my YouTube page. That's in the show notes. But if you search for joelgoldbergmedia.com, want to watch that, you can do so. My guest today really falls to me into a really interesting category with what he is doing, what he has been doing for a long time. John Gordon Jr. is the founder of an organization called BoysGrow. They mentor Kansas City's urban youth through agricultural entrepreneurship. And the youth commit to work in the program for 2 years. They live at home, so it's not a live there, but they get paid for their time on the farm. They get bused from downtown Kansas City to the farm in South Kansas City, about 25 minutes away. And the organization recruits youth from local charter or public schools, community centers, word of mouth. Really, really cool program that is helping, I would imagine, develop teenagers and perhaps send them on a career path. And so that's amazing. And I don't know that we hear about too much of this in the agricultural world, certainly not in terms of the city, not frequently enough. So I'm really excited right now to bring in to the podcast, John Gordon Jr. John, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to have you. And this is such an interesting program. I learned about it through some other people and some mutual contacts that we have with some fundraisers that you had going on. And I thought, boy, this is really interesting. I couldn't get to the fundraiser, but I thought I want to tell this story. And you've been at it now for over 10 years. So I know I gave sort of the general summary of it, but tell me more about BoysGrow, one, and then two, how did you go into this? How did you start this endeavor?
Mm-hmm. Well, the mission of BoysGrow is entrepreneurship through agriculture. So the quick pitch of the program is we take high school kids. It's a 2-year program, 14 to 17 years old. And then they come out to our farm in South Kansas City. They work and they get paid for their efforts. And then so we teach them entrepreneurism by they learn how to create their own value-added products from produce, some of the produce that's grown from the farm. So we have salsas and ketchups, and the boys learn about the marketing and the design and the recipe development. And then they learn about entrepreneurism by just really being a part of our business. So we sell products in the community. We sell produce to local restaurants and grocery stores. And then just as a nonprofit, it's a business in its own right. So, part of the beauty of the mission of it is that the mission is kind of just helping let the kids run what we're doing. And that's, in essence, kind of a wheel that kind of keeps on turning. So the boys come out for, like I said, 2 years, they get paid. It's a vocational training program also. So we have a construction program. So the boys learn how to do a variety of construction stuff around the farm. There's a culinary arts program where the boys, if they want to learn how to cook, they actually prepare fresh food on the farm for our daily activities. Graphic design, public speaking. So there's a variety of different teams that the boys get put onto. And then they have the opportunity to work on the farm for 2 years and, become farmers in their own way.
It's really cool. And I'm guessing, and I don't want to generalize or stereotype here, but no matter what your background is, there's not a whole lot of farming going on in most cities. Now you're seeing more in the urban core around the country. And I'm always feel like whenever I'm watching, say, a CBS Sunday Morning, which is one of my favorite shows in the world, they're it's shows like that are going to highlight some really cool, program in the city where you're seeing a little bit more of that. But this is really a unique program, and the scale I think that you're doing it at. So what motivated you to do this when you started in 2010? How'd you come up with the idea?
Yeah. Are you talking about Jane Pauley, CBS Mornings?
That show, yes, that's my favorite. I don't know who else watches that.
I like hearing about the in-depth small stories that she goes about. There was a guy that she did that was cooking Mediterranean food in some truck stop in Indiana or somewhere, and it was Wyoming. Yeah, it was such a cool story, and all these truckers kind of rolling through saying they never knew what curry was.
Yeah, that's exactly what the story was. But that's what I mean, John. Like this is, I think that's what drew me to this story. It's my Jane Pauley moment, I guess. But this is different. This is really cool. So what got you going down this?
Yeah. So for me, I don't have much of an agricultural background. I grew up kind of hunting and fishing and doing stuff like that. But for the most part, I was a city boy. I grew up in the city. I went to go work in Northern California in the systems and care unit out there, working with predominantly kind of juvenile court kids. And so I had the opportunity to work with them and did a variety of things with them. It was more kind of counseling. And I had one kid that was shipped out to a small farmstead, and his dad was a truck driver, I think, actually. And mom, I think, was a stay-at-home mom or a nurse. I can't remember, but they were kind of back to earthers to an extent, but they had a small kind of 1 acre plot. And he was off my caseload. But he was 14 years old, and he was a foster kid that got bounced around from a variety of different homes. And so I kind of created a pretty good bond with him. So I went to go visit him like a month later, and he came kind of running out, and he always had a hoodie on. He always kind of shoulders were tucked under. And when he came out to the car, he kind of ran up and shook my hand, and thought that was interesting. Definitely something had changed with him. And then he kind of showed me around. He's like, well, let me show you my new spot, And I said, okay. So he showed me that he had his own goat he had to take care of. He had his own little garden plot. And the amount of pride that he took on what he was showing me was something I'd never seen him do at all, but also just a lot of kids his age. I haven't seen a lot of 14-year-olds actually take that much pride in what they were doing. So a couple things resonated for me. I think one of them was that it was something that was very foreign to him. And it was unique to him, and his peers weren't doing it. So he could almost take ownership in that right. Like, no one else has a goat. I got a goat. So that was exciting to him. And then also, I think something else for him too was the opportunity he had to help provide for his foster family at the time. I don't know if they would have gone under if his little beet patch didn't make it. But there was an expectation that he was going to take care of those beets, and he was going to learn how to grow them, learn how to harvest them, learn how to water them. So at a young age, there was something that happened with him which said, you know what, I belong in this, or I belong here. I got value here, and people value my work, and I want to rise to the occasion. So that's where the initial kind of concept of BoysGrow came from, where it was this kind of, taking kids that didn't necessarily have opportunities to do that and put them in an environment to have those opportunities to kind of thrive the way he did. The entrepreneurial thread was created primarily because both my parents ran small businesses. So I had the opportunity to kind of see what a small business looks like from the inside. It's not always as glamorous as everyone thinks. It's a lot of hard work and no retirement. But I had the opportunity to kind of see that. So I wanted to at least peel back the layers of what a small business might look like for these young guys. So create a farm, we grow stuff, we make stuff, we sell stuff, allow them the opportunity to do that. And that's really been the foundation of it from the start. There's been things that have kind of added on to it, but that's always been the foundation.
So was that moment out in California? I mean, I know it wasn't on the spot. Hey, I got to start something, but it clearly made an impact on you and your life, and provided some form of inspiration or motivation to do something. What brought you back to Kansas City, and then how did you kind of piece this all together? I'm sure it's evolved in major ways. I know it has over the last 10 years, but take me back to those early days.
Yeah. So I was out in north, just about 2 hours north of San Francisco. And I was pretty rooted. I was going to stay out there. I was actually applying for a master's program out there, and I was pretty good. I was enjoying myself and enjoying life. My mom got sick, and she had an illness that progressed pretty quick. So I moved back, and so did my other siblings. We all moved back to Kansas City pretty quick. So I kind of just jumped ship. It was just a decision that had to get made. So I'm originally from Kansas City, so I moved back to Kansas City, and really just loaded my stuff in my car. And within a month, I was gone. And with the intention of going back to California potentially, but that was kind of that was the hope. I'll come back, stay in Kansas City for a bit, and then go back. So got back to Kansas City and had a lot going on in my life personally at that time. And but you know that kid on that little small farm always kind of resonated with me. But it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm gonna move back to Kansas City and start a nonprofit. And it's gonna be like a career. You know, it was just kind of like this I don't know, kind of a loose concept on something I thought might be cool. You know, so but I worked for a couple other nonprofits at the time, and just had a kind of few odds and ends jobs really, and then I kind of had then I realized like, all right, if you're gonna do it, now's the time. Like I'm not tied to a specific job right now, but there was a part of me that also was like, I don't know how to start I don't know how to start a nonprofit. You know, like I don't really know how to kind of take this concept and then make it into something. So really just kind of networked and talked to a few different people in and out of the nonprofit field. And I quickly realized that starting a nonprofit is pretty much it's just like starting a business. There's just different paperwork and there's a different mission, you know? So I was pretty deliberate in the beginning that I wanted to have a really good like business plan, you know? And so I spent some time writing that business plan, a lot of time writing that business plan. And then once I shopped it around it to folks I thought might be interested, that was the first time I kind of realized that we might have something here, you know? The concept was very different and very fresh and very unique. And for better or worse, there wasn't a whole lot of other organizations I could steal from, you know, or borrow from in regards to this concept of what this thing was. So when I shopped it around, there was kind of like this, like, oh, well, what other cities is this in? You know, like where'd this come from? Where does this exist? This isn't brand new. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, well, we might have some. So, but that first year, you know, even when we got going with seed money, you know, the first year I just thought it'd be more or less kind of a summer program, and then we'll kind of see where it goes. I didn't know it would kind of become something.
Yeah, and now it's year round. I'm curious, what just from your conversations over the years, and later on I'll ask you about some of these kids and the way they've impacted you. I know that you all there are impacting them, but I've been around long enough to know that always goes both ways. But when you talk to the kids, what's the allure to them? I'm guessing a lot of these kids aren't looking to say, hey, I want to go be a farmer. And I don't think my kids are sitting here saying, hey, I want to go be a farmer. I know that there has to be a lot of work involved. There's obviously the commitment to transportation back and forth. So there's a big time commitment. And, you know, last I checked, a lot of teenagers are pretty happy playing video games. That's not a get off my lawn type of thing, but I've got 2 teenagers. I know that they're happy watching Netflix and being around the house and all of that. And then if they get a job, they go down the street and they do that. But this is a 2-year commitment. I know what the end results are. I'm pretty sure that I do. But what do you hear from these kids in terms of their motivation or their reasons?
Well, initially it's a little, it can be cloudy in the beginning, you know, when we tell them that they do get paid, that right away, that's, you know, like, why would you, of course, that's gonna be a factor for anyone, especially when you're 14 and have never gotten paid before. So there's always that thing. And we always, always tell them, hey, if you're looking for, you know, if you're here for the paycheck, you're kind of in the wrong spot. You know, there's summer jobs that you can go apply to. We can assist you and kind of lead you in what you want on getting a job. But if you're here for the paycheck, that's not necessarily the reason why you need to be here. You're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to kind of join a family, and you're going to join a networking community. You're going to learn a lot of things, and you're also going to get paid. So initially, you know, and we always try to kind of weed those boys out in the beginning, because you should get compensated for your work. If you're going to come work, you should get paid. But they could probably go to Worlds of Fun and get paid a little bit more. So initially, it always is a money factor where they're like, oh, geez, you know. And then it's like, oh, how much do we get paid? So if I work this many days for this many weeks, then I can buy this. You know, I'm like, no, that's a good thing to think about, but let's think about beyond the money. You know, so the money's a factor, and then after that, it's really kind of a cross section of things. I mean, through the years, we've gotten more and more kids that either siblings or relatives or kids in their school or someone had kind of been through the program, so they're kind of aware of what it is. But surprisingly, I'd say more in the last, 3 to 4 years, I'd say some of the surprising motivation is to become more extroverted and to kind of gain confidence, to learn how to talk to people more, to not be on the couch more. And then from a personal perspective, but then also just to be outside and do things. I think that with the evolution of technology, I think that, I don't know if it was like this when we started 10 years ago, but it seems like in the last couple of years, it's almost like these kids are more aware that, sometimes their social skills and their, professional skills are maybe lacking a little bit, and they want some opportunities to kind of sharpen those, but also be outside and do things outside.
There's a lot of we talked about this throughout. There are a lot of real life experiences here that every kid would be lucky enough to have, because, you can't teach that in a classroom. You can to an extent, as well as I do, that there's nothing that replaces hands-on experience. That's true in my profession in broadcasting too. And so they're getting it. So I'm curious at what point, and maybe it varies by each kid, at what point it goes from, oh, I can go make some money, to, hey, wait a minute, I really like this. This is worth my time. There has to be a transformation process over time, I would think.
Yeah. I think that usually happens around week 2. Because it starts in the summer. So the new kids start, the old kids have been coming back they've already, they know what's going on. The new kids start in the summer, and I think it's pretty overwhelming for kids in the beginning. It's supposed to be a little overwhelming for them. There's expectations for them in regards to showing up to work on time. They have to have a dress code when they show up, and they have to have their own tools. And if they don't have their own stuff, they have to do push-ups. And maybe some kids aren't used to being push-ups, especially in front of 60 people. So I think it can be kind of overwhelming for them in the beginning. But once they get put on their specific teams, where they're like all of a sudden like, okay, I'm on the culinary team. Like, this is my job. Like, I cook food for everyone. I have an identity here. There's these older kids that are on the team. They're kind of teaching me, they're mentoring me. So I think around the second week, the kids kind of learn where they stand, but then also the relationship building, where they're meeting new people, they're meeting new friends. And, I think there's a turn that happens there. And, I've always been consistently surprised on how cool these kids are with each other. There's always little stuff here and there, but for the most part, it's a really, really supportive group. And I don't know why. I know it's not like that in high school all the time. So I don't know why they're so supportive of each other, but that helps with the new kids in particular feel ownership of the farm and the program.
Well, I don't think that that's any different than any school activity where you're part of a team. And I mean, think just in terms of sports or theater or whatever it is. And maybe you come in as a freshman or sophomore, and you're newer and you're learning from those upperclassmen. And by the time and I know this is a 2-year scale, but by the time that you're towards the end, you're the one teaching others. That's, by the way, true in any profession and any organization with good culture, where you're passing that on. And so clearly that's happening. So I'm curious, John, like, what a typical day might be like for these kids. And if I understand it correctly, they're in 3 days a week during the summer and then twice a month during the school year. So let's just take, say, a busy time during the summer. What might a day look like for a kid when after he arrives on the bus till when he goes home?
Yeah, well, this year was a little bit different because COVID, but for the most part,
non-COVID year.
Yeah, non-COVID year. Yeah. So we bus them in from downtown. We bus them in from the Tony A. Gary Center on the west side. So they either get bussed in, or else they get just dropped off at the farm. As soon as they show up, we have something called a bucket check, and each kid has their own bucket, which has all their own tools, and then so they line up in a formation. And this is actually kind of like, we do these graduate profiles with some of the boys, like on our e-blast. And I was interviewing a kid the other day, and he's 21 now, and he works at the Federal Reserve now, and he's got like a good job, and he's just doing really, really well. So I was interviewing him, and I was like, hey, how did BoysGrow help you prepare for your job, et cetera, et cetera? And he talked about the book. He's like, well, I didn't realize it until after I graduated, but the bucket checks really had a big impact on me. So the bucket checks it's pretty simple, but the kids they all have their own numbers, right? So you you're A1 or B6 or whatever, you're on different teams. They got their garden trowel, they got their notebook, they got all the stuff they have to bring to work, right? So we line them up, and we tell them, like, this is going to be 10 minutes of heaven or hell, man. Either you got all the stuff you need and it's going to go smooth, or you don't, and it's going to be kind of ugly. And we tell them you might get barked at, there might be push-ups, but we do this so we know that we can keep you guys safe, because we got 40, 50 kids out here on the farm. There's equipment, there's things. We need to know that you can listen to us when you need to. He's like, this isn't a military camp. After the bucket check, for the most part, you'll most likely never get reprimanded. We have almost no discipline problems out here, but these 10 minutes are going to be intense, and at first the kids are like, whoa. So they all line up, and then we just yell out. Usually our junior staff kids do kind of run the bucket checks. They yell out the cadence, you got this. And they raise it, they set it down, they have it or don't have it. And they go through and they have to do push-ups for all the offenses. They have to line up silently. So there's like kind of 10 minutes. It's pretty intense that a lot of kids aren't used to at that age. And then after that, we have a big kind of big powwow, big sit down. We get together, we go through the different teams. We got a construction leader, we got a culinary leader, we got a farm leader, and then they have their own staff. Everybody has their own crew. So they say, hey, what's for lunch? Culinary team says, hey, we need this. We're going to make this. Farm team, do you guys have any fresh spinach? Farm team says, yes, we do. And then the construction team says what they're going to work on for the day. And then everyone kind of breaks out and they work in their pods. So usually we have 2 1-hour work blocks, come back for lunch, and then we have another work block. And then each day we close it out with a variety of things. We have a farm trivia, which is kind of a Family Feud style trivia. We have a farm class where the boys learn about farm class. I have a resume building, and then we have a pond time. So we have a pond so the boys swim. So that's pretty much the quick rundown of what a day might look like.
Really interesting. So how much would you say, and I don't know what the goals were when you started, but how much, and you've touched on this a little bit, John, how much is this about leadership and teamwork and building for the future versus agriculture and being a farmer?
It's a lot about that. So when the kids sign up, there's sometimes a pushback where I'm not a farmer. I'm not trying to sign up to raise hogs. And we tell them the mission is not to turn you into a farmer. That's not what we're doing. With that being said, there has been kids that have taken to this. And there's been employment opportunities on the short side of things, but also internships with Cargills and Smithfields and jobs that have been created through our platform, but also through the boys taking an interest in agriculture. So we tell them, hey, we're not trying to train you to be this, but if this interests you, you got a really good opportunity here to turn this into something. So, but when it comes down to kind of leadership. And what was the other thing you said? Leadership and something else, right?
Just leadership, teamwork versus.
Okay, yeah. That's a huge part of what this thing is. And we're a nonprofit, and we're 2/3 of our money comes from foundations and corporations and stuff. And I've personally I've only seen a few foundations that actually stress leadership. A lot of it's a variety of things, but I've only seen a few that actually say, hey, what are you guys? I see you guys focus on leadership. I don't see a lot of organizations that do that. And for us, leadership is necessary for the program because the older kids need to teach the younger kids. And at the end of the day, when we have donors or people that might want to buy our ketchup, if the kids aren't projecting the program well, then the program isn't really working well, right? So, and it's mandatory for us to create that culture so the older kids teach the younger kids, and then everyone kind of gets it and everyone can do it. So the leadership aspect it happens right away from the older kids mentoring the younger kids, but also that when that leaks into your everyday life, that's if you have a slither more confidence in yourself to be a leader and to not be a follower, that can transcend a lot of things. And that kid the example I was giving you, he specifically mentioned that he came in a little introverted, and then he had the internship at the Federal Reserve, and then he's like, but you know what? He's like, you guys made me speak in public, and I had to do these things I wasn't comfortable doing. So when I got to the internship, a lot of the kids my age were still kind of trying to work through those things. And he's like, I was already able to kind of jump past that. And I was working on actual job stuff as opposed to how to shake someone's hand or how to look someone in the eye.
Very inspiring. Really, really cool. All right. Time for the baseball themed questions, brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. John, professionally speaking, what's the biggest home run that you've hit?
Biggest home run, I would say the accidental genius idea to have this nonprofit be centered around food in some way. There's no way we'd be where we are right now without the support of our chefs and the restaurant community, and it helps that that's what we do. We grow food, and there's a large portion of our program that does train kids to cook and to work around food. So we're not stretching our mission to align with these people, but some of the restaurants that have put in the wind behind our sails in the very, very beginning, I think it's amazing, and there's no way we'd be where we are right now without their help. So, whether it was a stroke of genius or a stroke of accident, who knows? But the fact that we're able to partner with those folks is, to me, the biggest home run.
Love that. Okay, how about a swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
Swing and a miss. We've had a tough time protecting our chickens through the years. I feel like we lose chickens about a couple times a month. But I would say the biggest swing and a miss in regards to that would be probably the first chicken coop that we built was on a kind of a piece of land that we had at 94th and Parallel that we borrowed for a couple of years, and we didn't have any electricity or anything, and we built a chainsaw. Me and a couple of the boys we built a chicken coop with a chainsaw, with a bunch of donated lumber that didn't even match. And that might have been the most artistic or ugly and least effective chicken coop that's ever been built.
And finally, the small ball question. That's what my book is, based on small ball, big results. I'll put the plug in right now. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on my website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. Small ball, the little things that add up to the big things. What does that mean to you, John?
I would say within the scope of the program, I think one thing that we've done well is that we've stayed consistent in a way, and I think kids see that. I think consistency on how you deal with them professionally and personally, but also consistency with the program. To me, that's kind of a small win. We're always trying to add new elements to the program, but when a kid comes in, they kind of know what to expect from year one to year two. And, you don't want them to get bored, but at the same time, you don't want to always kind of throw stuff at them and shift directions all the time. So to me, I think it's kind of a small ball win that we've been able to do through the years, is stay consistent with our mission and consistent in what we're doing.
4 final questions now as we round the bases. You don't know these yet, but let's have a little bit of fun with them. First thing, how often, you do have the junior after your name, but there's John Gordon, the famous speaker around the country. There was a guy named John Gordon, well, he still exists, that was former radio announcer, legendary radio announcer for the Minnesota Twins. Do you ever get confused with any of the other John Gordons?
I do get confused with my dad.
With your dad?
I don't know those guys. There was a dentist in town that was John Gordon, and he might have been John Gordon Jr. actually, but there was a dentist in town. I think I got maybe 1 or 2 calls, and I said, yeah. I was like, come on by, we'll help you out.
Dr. Gordon now.
Cash.
See how
Cash. No insurance.
See how easy it is to become a doctor?
Yeah, just like that, man.
You guys could do job swaps, and he could be out on the farm and you could be in there seeing the patients. I'm not signing up for that one, by the way. Okay. Second question. What's your favorite thing that the kids make or produce or cook, or what's the big standout to you?
Are you asking me to pick my favorite kid, Joel? Is that what you're doing?
No, not kid, product.
Same thing.
Well, it is the same thing. It's your baby, right?
I think the barbecue sauce is probably my favorite. It's it's a Kansas City kind of Carolina mix. So all of our products, we've tried to make them a little bit healthier than their other people. So it's like a little bit healthier. So there's a lot less sugar. There's agave, there's honey, there's brown sugar, but it's also a lot more vinegar than your average Kansas City sauce. So
Okay.
I think it's really good on chicken and pork in particular. But I would say that's probably my favorite. And a close second, I would say, is the tzatziki salad dressing.
Ooh, I got to check both of those out. How do people get that? Is it in restaurants?
Yeah, there's a couple different stores. Local KC is one. Brookside Cosentino's. There's a place called The Exchange, which is a new place down in Parkville that just is carrying them. Made in KC, Local Pig. Just a handful of retailers. We've kind of scaled back the last couple of years in regards to how many spots we carry them, but I think we're about ready to kind of ramp it back up and get more locations.
See, people can go into Made in KC and buy my book and the barbecue sauce and everything. See, just one-stop shop right there. That sounds really good, by the way. And I should slap myself for asking you on the favorite part of that, because I get that all the time. I understand it. What's your favorite interview? Who's your favorite player? Not that I'm looking at those as my kids, but when you're around it every day, it's like, I got a lot of choices here. But we got a chance to talk about your barbecue sauce and the tzatziki sauce, so that's a good thing too. Third question, as we round the bases, you mentioned the motivation of the kid in Northern California, and you touched on the other kid that went off to the Federal Reserve. But do you, and I'm sure there are many, so I guess I'm asking you to pick a favorite again, but do you have just an inspiring success story, or one that will always stay with you over the years?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, anytime you work with humans, especially humans that are younger and developing, there's going to be relationships that are created that just last, and they stick with you quite a bit. And there's a lot of kids out there. I mean, here's one kid that he chose kind of agriculture as a career. And when he started with us, he was pretty young, but then he hit some pretty serious snags in life, that could set him back some years. And he kind of came out of those, but then through the program, he kind of, he's a senior at K-State in business ag, and he's internships at these big ag companies. And, I know for a fact that he wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for his time out here. So that's kind of a good success story. But I also think some of the, it's very easy to find the kind of anecdotal success stories on, he did this and that happened. But sometimes the success stories are just sometimes the relationships that you create with the kids in particular. And, because, not every kid goes on to do different things. And if this program, if this farm, if this community can also offer kind of a fallback for people, that has enough weight in itself. So we've had some kids that have, one kid in particular that did have some struggles, they'd been out of the program for 2 or 3 years, very transitional home life, had some stuff going on. And he reached out and was like, hey, I want to, he didn't know what he wanted. He was 19, but he knew he wanted to talk to us, So I said, why don't you just come on out? And I didn't really know what was going on in his life. And he came out to the farm, and pretty tough kid. And right away, just like he had to go for a walk on his own. He started to cry right away because the field out here represented a time in his life that was fun, that was positive, that was good. And he was going through times in his life right now that were not good. So if that farm can kind of be that resource and that therapy for people to come back and find that in their life, that happiness or that joy, whatever it is, and hopefully carry that on to where they are now. I mean, that's really all I can ask for.
I mean, and I knew this before we started. I alluded to it towards the top of the podcast, but there's no question you get as much out of this as they do, right? I mean, the inspiration, the development, the growth. I mean, I know that the name BoysGrow has multiple meanings to it, but how much do you get out of this?
I get a lot, I mean, I get to like kind of, be a farmer a few days of the week. I get to be an executive director a few days of the week. So I personally get to dabble in a variety of different things. We get to make sauces, we get to work with restaurants. So just on kind of a fun level in regards to a job, this one's pretty fun because you get to do a variety of things. And then on the other aspect of it, it's fun. It's fun. It can be hard because you're dealing with 14 to 17-year-olds, which as at any age, us men sometimes don't communicate very well. So it can be kind of thankless sometimes too, because you're working with kids and it is what it is, man. Sometimes they don't know what they're getting out of the deal until years down the road. So sometimes I get the most out of it kind of looking back and having conversations with kids that have been through the program, and whether it's this success story of the kid getting the Federal Reserve job, or just the guy that's that's working at the grocery store right now and going to community college, but having those relationships when they get a little bit older. To me, I've been doing this for 10 years. So, I get a lot of that. And then bringing back kids that have gone through the program to work here, that's probably the most exciting thing, is to see them go through it and then come back and then hear their little pep talks to the current kids, or talk about how you guys got it so easy. You have running water. We had to water our plants from the 5-gallon buckets from the pond, and they get this whole, back in my day, I used to walk up the hill twice to school, that thing, So having the program been around as long as it has, and seeing the kids kind of spin their own tales of what it is rewarding.
Very cool, very rewarding. And yes, those young kids are getting older, and now the next generation keeps coming in and keeps coming in. Sustainability there. Final question, my walk-off for you. Long-term now, where do you want to see this go? Let's get past COVID, but what are the next steps for BoysGrow?
Well, we just built this farm kitchen that I'm sitting in now, and it's a multi-flex space / event space. So it kind of took BoysGrow onto the next phase of growth. So as far as sustainability, the program's in a good spot to continue on no matter what. Should I be leading this program 20 years from now? Probably not. I should probably figure some stuff out. They don't need the super old guy in charge. But the program has longevity, and it's here to stay. And then there's been talks about trying to bring this to other cities, and I'm not against those conversations. It's an easy program to replicate, but it's also hard in a sense too, because it's tied to land and there's assets involved. But if we're providing this opportunity for these kids and it's going well, if there's opportunities to bring it to other cities to make it worthwhile, then I'm open to those conversations. I've also seen a gap between kids that when they're kind of that 17, 18, 19, just out of high school, maybe not going to a 4-year college, maybe in a community college, maybe they're kind of in limbo a little bit. I think there's a void there for some meaningful employment for those kids, to kind of push them in a direction of vocationally maybe what they might want to do. So, I think there's opportunities for kind of their small business type startup that actually employs kids at that age. It teaches them a tangible skill, but also kind of gives them some case management services in regards to vocationally, what do you want to do? You don't have to go to a 4-year college and get a degree. You can get a VOTEC job. There's a lot of opportunities there, but so whether it's a small business that kind of creates a situation where these guys can make money, but then also kind of assist them in becoming what they might want to become. I think there's opportunities there too.
What an amazing story. And if people want to find out more about it, they can go to the website boysgrow.com. John, congratulations on 10 plus years of success. Is that the best way for people to find out more, get a hold? I know you've got fundraisers and other things that go on year to year, but boysgrow.com, is that the best way?
Yeah, that's the best way. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I really enjoyed it. Amazing, fascinating program. And I know much more to come. I got to try out that barbecue sauce for sure. So that is next on my list, especially because it's healthy. I'm trying to be a little bit healthier, aren't we all, in 2021? At least trying to for the day, for the time being. So appreciate you spending all the time.
I'll swap you a book for the barbecue sauce.
All right, we can do that. Well, the book was going to be coming to you anyway, so you want to send me some BBQ, that's good. Otherwise, I will go out and get it. But congrats on the success, and thanks for spending time on Rounding the Bases today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, good to visit with John Gordon Jr. Really, really cool nonprofit an organization that is making a difference. Shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they need a partner that leverages a longer-term strategy in helping them to overcome short-term obstacles in achieving their goals. That's going to do it for this episode. You can reach me at joelgoldbergmedia.com. It's a good place to find my book and everything else. If you've got guests, certainly send them my way. We're booked up for quite a while, but always looking for interesting stories to tell, and hope to catch you next time on Rounding the Bases. Thanks for listening, everyone.